Hello everyone. I hope you're all having a good time. I'm got a little video for you here today about Apollo and the moon hoax. So I want to talk a little bit about why I think Apollo was a hoax. So here goes. Basically, it's the heat. That's my main objection. So it's very hot up there in space. How do I know that? Okay, first piece of evidence, Skylab. Only piece of evidence really, Skylab. Look it up on Wikipedia, first page, Skylab history, and you'll see on the first page, first paragraph, second paragraph, there's a blue highlighted word, solar thermal radiation, solar thermal heat. So if you look around there, you'll see that where it says that the mission was almost aborted because during launch, the micrometeoroid shield had broke away and it damaged one of the main solar arrays and it jammed the second main solar array, leaving the craft crippled for power and with no shade. And if it wasn't for the fact that the crew managed to install a third shade and they managed to open the remaining jammed solar array, the whole mission would have been aborted because of the intense solar heat. So please have a look at that on Wikipedia for me, just to make sure it's still there, because I'm convinced that it won't always be there and it'll be taken down quite soon, because it flies in the face of everything we're told about Apollo. So Apollo didn't have any shade, and you know the difference between Apollo and any of the low Earth orbit missions is that all the low Earth orbit missions are in the shade for half the time. They have an orbital period of 2 hours, meaning that for an hour they're in the dark cooling off, and then for an hour they're back in the sun heating up. Apollo was in the sun all the time, and what means did it have to cool down? NASA gives us the following explanation: being shiny, the reflectivity. Just because the Apollo vessel was shiny, that's enough to bounce off all the heat into space. But you know, that doesn't work on Earth. Even in a vacuum oven, you know, things get hot whether they're shiny or not, if they're out in the sun or if they're exposed to heat. So it's a silly thing to say, this reflectivity argument. I don't buy it at all. And the second thing they say is the protective thermal roll, or the passive thermal roll, which is the way the craft spins as it heads off to the moon, and it rotates maybe 3 times an hour depending on who you read. But would that really cool something down? I'd have to spin a pig pretty fast to stop it heating up on a spit, wouldn't I? Things aren't any different in vacuum ovens. You know, you can put things on a rotisserie inside a vacuum oven, and if you can manage to keep them cool, you could probably write a paper about it and discover some new phenomena in physics that's never been heard of before. But there isn't anything out there that I've ever heard of, and I would have seen it because I've researched this stuff, you know. So the thermal roll's just silly. So I always take the idea of a spanner, turning a spanner slowly in the noonday sun. Will that cool much slower than another spanner that's not being turned? Will a shiny spanner be much cooler than a dull, rusty spanner? No, it won't. They both reach maximum temperature pretty soon. They'll both feel one a bit as hot as the other. So that's it. That's all you have. You have various other little details like the wick-away cooling system, but we needn't concern ourselves with that because Apollo 13 had all its systems shut down, all the electrical systems, so there was no wick-away cooling system. There was nothing. There was just the furnace of the raw sun blasting that craft for 7 days and 7 nights. You know, that's what a journey to the moon would have entailed for Apollo. So this, to me, is not just a negative story about how we were all hoaxed. This is a story about how we can communicate to each other the truth in a scientific way, even though I haven't used any equations or, any numbers. This is all science because we're taking things from first principle, from what we know about nature, and we're applying it to a story we've heard to examine the veracity of that story. Could it have happened? And if the answer is no, and we've proved it by arguments about heat, then that is a scientific inquiry. I would like to take science back for the people. I would like to re-energise people about science. Science is very interesting, but I would accuse Apollo of corrupting science and changing it, making it into a religion, And in the same way that the Catholic Church took God from the people and gave it the keys to the priests, NASA's done exactly the same thing with science. They've locked it away, and the only way we can get to it is through a NASA scientist. And that is actually kind of the case for a lot of researchers. They can't get the data unless NASA supply it to them, because NASA are the ones in charge of the data streams from the Hubble Space Telescope and, sources like that. All the scientific projects that are on, but less so all the time, of course, with all the little start-up companies that we see forming now, even in places like Scotland, New Zealand. They're launching their own satellites, and it's very exciting. So exciting times. So also, there was something that I wanted to say, apart from, demolishing 50 years of USA narrative and Cold War nonsense. And it is a message that I'm optimistic about what it will mean for us to inquire about this and to take down this myth together. And I look forward to hearing your comments anyway, and I'll probably remember what else I had to say on the next vid. So thanks for listening, if you're still here to the end. Thank you.